Okay.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our final Halloween live stream for CG Cookie. I'm Tim Von Rieden, and I'm joined by Joe Chico.
Hello.
And as we always start these streams, we have a lot to cover today. We're going to do a pencil drawing, and we're going to announce the winners of the contest. But before we do that, if you want to say where you're watching from, Joe will do the quick shout-outs before we go ahead and get started as people are joining in.
All right. Let me take this off.
Get it? Because it's Skull Kid? Okay. All right. Megan Mahan says, hey, across the lake from Milwaukee. Oh, she's really close. Matt Harris says, hello from Australia. Nua says, hey, yay, my favorite day. Hello from San Francisco. I'm excited for the contest. Have a good stream all. Thank you. Lifetime Gamer says, yo, from Michigan. And Benjamin Moran says, hailing from Virginia. That's all we got so far.
I forgot you guys probably can't hear me too well.
Oh, there we go. It's updating. Constantine says hello from Russia. Renato says hello from Italy. Let me get rid of these as they pop up. Lifetime Gamer says, Joe, love your Skull Kid mask. Thank you. My girlfriend made it. It's made of resin. You can check out her stuff at Ridmark's Art. Eve E says, where'd it go? It like jumps around. It says, hi from Germany. It's been a while. So glad I can catch the stream for once. Kate QVQ says hello from Poland. The Lone Owl 1 says, and it just disappeared. Oh, there it goes. Alex says, hi from Long Island. I'm a writer and I know nothing about art. This is my first live stream with you guys. Well, welcome. This has got to be kind of frightening if this is your first stream. Numtaru, or my friend Dave, says, hello from the corn maze. That's got to be great Wi-Fi. Nailbird says, greetings from Canada. Jess says, hi from Colorado.
Oh, I'm ready. You good to go?
Right. One more. Sex Piccolo says, Guten Abend from Germany, Baden-Württemberg.
No idea what you just said to me. Hi. Welcome, everyone, to this 2D concept cookie live stream from CG Cookie. And today, if you haven't already heard it, is our last Halloween live stream. It's sad, but it was a fun month, and this is the last time we will be dressing up. And today, I want to do something a little different, and we're going to do traditional drawing, and I'm going to be drawing a skull. This is one of the trademark images when it comes to Halloween, and I think it's a good one to practice because this one also gives you insight into anatomy and drawing facial features. So if you can draw a skull pretty well, there's a good chance that you'll have a pretty solid understanding of the facial features, where the proportions are, and how to lay in your facial features on top of them. So we're going to do this with a pencil. This is something I want to do at least once a month, do a traditional one. It seems like there's a lot of good feedback on drawing traditionally, and I love drawing with just pencil and paper, so I have no problem doing that. Okay, I feel like, oh yeah, the big announcement. Besides the contest ending yesterday, and we are going to announce the winner at the end of the stream, which, by the way, this was not an easy contest to judge. I know I say that for almost every contest, but this one in particular sparked a lot of debate, especially between me and Joe, on discussing well, is it a stronger concept that should win it, or should it be a stronger rendering style that should win it? And there was a lot of clashing back and forth, good clashing, but it was one of those where we have the winner set, and the remaining ones will be on a post that will go out right after the stream is over. So if you're curious on who won the second, third, and community as well, we will post that right after the stream is over. Okay, and the other big announcement is the color course. We've been working tirelessly the past like week and a half to record and get these out, and it should be out tomorrow. So if color is something you struggle with, we literally have 20 tutorials coming out tomorrow, 10 specifically that are added onto the previous 10 that were added last month. But this one is specifically with working in color. And we talk about things of, how do I make this stand out for more? Why do my areas look flat in my piece? And we're going to cover all of that. So if that's something that interests you, it comes out tomorrow. All right. I feel like that's the big announcements I had. Joe, do you have anything you wanted to say?
Yeah. There's someone watching from Malaysia right now, and it's 3 a.m. there.
Wow.
That's
thank
impressive.
you for coming to watch.
Go to sleep.
All right. So I'm going to switch the cameras here, and I got to move this back over because like this little Godiver here going down. Let me switch the cameras. All right. So if you guys didn't see the promo image, we're going to be doing one of these skulls here. We do a skull in profile. And let me grab, oh, you know what? I left my other pencil upstairs. Joe?
Yes.
Talk for like a minute.
All right. I'm going to talk for about a minute about stuff. How's everyone doing today? I'm doing pretty well. I'm going to read out some more hellos, actually. Let's see. Hans Krill says, creepy greetings from the Netherlands. Nikki Lower says, hello from Idaho. And, oh, where'd it go? There's a good question. Oh, KQVQ asks, Joe, I don't know if anyone asked this before, but have you ever tried any color contacts? Yes, I actually used to wear blue-eyed contacts back in college. Also, Tim, has anyone freaked out yet seeing your makeup at Subway, for example? We're actually not allowed to go to Subway wearing makeup.
Yeah, we got kicked out last week.
Yeah. We were like, what? And the guy was like, no, leave. We're like, oh, man.
You thought we were going to rob him or something?
Okay. Oh, sorry.
I just really wanted to show quickly. Let me move this up. All right, so in my little pencil case, there's pretty much 3 pencils I use for everything. Oh my gosh, and the third one's not even in my case. I was just about to say how I never lose anything because it's always in my case, but it's not even in here right now.
I think it's in the family room.
Is it? All right, one sec.
Namtaro says, Tim reminds me of that tattooed guy they used in makeup commercial to show how effective their makeup was. I don't remember that makeup commercial, but I remember the skull from somewhere. Is it hard to hold the skull without imitating Shakespeare? Oh, there we go. To be or not to be? That is the question. I actually learned about this in perspective the other day. It's like, does it look like I'm holding this? Okay. Gonza says your makeup makes you seem like you're full-time smiling. I am. I'm always smiling. I'm always happy.
Oh, all right.
You find it? All right.
It was under my pillow. Not sure why. All right. So basically, whenever I'm drawing traditionally, I stick with 3 pencils. Any standard mechanical pencil, actually not this one. Like this one is a Bic pencil. These are generally 0.7 millimeters or millimeters. I don't use my 0.5 one actually anymore, just because the next one down I use is a 0.3, which is the yellow one that I primarily use for most everything. But then for the detailing, Joe got me this white one. Oh my gosh, I need to catch my breath. I've been running around this house. And this one is actually a 0.2. So the difference between the 3 and or the 0.3 and the 0.2 aren't too. Let me see if I can focus this for you guys. Oh, there we go. It's very minimal. You probably can't even see it too well on the live stream, but when you see the 0.7, I don't know how well you can. Oh, there we go. You can definitely see that the 0.7 is much thicker than the other two. So when I'm doing the more intricate details, I use the smaller pencils, but to start off, I always work with the bigger one. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm gonna zoom down so you guys can see this. And then the eraser that I always use some form of a rubber eraser. Kneaded eraser, I should say. They're not the rubber ones. These are the ones that like stretch. You can form into different shapes. So if you want a specific area erased, but you kind of wanted it smaller, then you can do that. But if there's a certain shape that you want erased, I also bought this, it's called an erase card. And pretty much you lay it down on your paper and then you erase the area that's empty and it'll give you the remaining shape when you pull it off. All right, so let's go ahead and draw some skulls. I think I'm gonna do just a basic explanation of what I'm drawing first, and then we can get into the questions. I wanna make sure my hand doesn't get in the way too much. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna do my best to make sure that I pull my hand away from the camera as much as possible. So pretty much to start off with, usually I like to use reference. I have the skull that I showed at the beginning. He's gonna be kind of my dummy reference. It's not 100% accurate, obviously, as being a Halloween decoration, but it does the job on giving me a pretty solid proportion to work with. Oops, let me grab that. And it's funny when you think about how weird artists actually are, because back in the day, they would actually go to morgues where people have passed away, and they would actually examine and dissect bodies to get references for anatomy, because they didn't have Google image search back in the day. So they had to rely on what was the time presented to them. And their reference was actually 100% accurate, where sometimes ours might be from like another drawing of a skull or a clay version of the skull. So it's actually kind of cool to think that they got to see real life referencing. It might have smelled a little bit, but they got to see how and if they really wanted to, I guess they could have felt the skull and the different irregularities to the skull. And it's not a perfectly smooth skull. I almost want to do a what not to do when drawing skulls. And the first thing would be make this back sphere area perfectly smooth. The skull should have a little bumping to it. And then if you even look at it further, it has like these, what looks like cracks that kind of shape out the head as well. But we'll get more into that later. So as I'm going, I'm trying to get a general feel of the skull first. Now this is the drawing technique that I do when I'm doing anything. So I don't lay down like a lot of loose, quick lines first. I like to work more meticulous and slow. So I definitely find myself kind of moving throughout the piece. And if there's an area that definitely feels way out of proportion, I'll just erase it and keep moving forward. But I generally just eye it out and kind of shoot for it for what I'm going for. And it doesn't always work. I can be honest with myself and know that sometimes my proportions are way, way too whack. And when cases like that happen, I just have to erase it and retry. I think there's just something relaxing and calming about the process that I've kind of adopted for myself. And it is a slower process. So I enjoy it, but it's one that I don't know if I would specifically recommend. All right, so as I'm going, I usually do a rough outline first, like I said. And then from here, I'm going to lay out the inner details and work them up with not like a finessing detail yet, but I'm trying to lay out the basic shapes so that we can get into the finer shadowing and laying out the details. But I want to make sure that the shapes all read together well first. Oops. All right, so I think as I'm doing that, then we can go ahead and start answering questions. Oh, and I forgot to say that at the beginning of the stream. If you guys have any questions, even if it has nothing to do with drawing skulls or even working with a pencil, If it's anything with digital art or something about getting a job in the industry, feel free to ask it, and Joe is here to moderate and ask the questions.
Yeah. And Falcon asks, Tim, just wondering, was your skull makeup based off Zombie Boy?
You bet. I love that makeup. Actually, I didn't even realize, someone told me I looked like the character from American Horror Story, and I never really understood it until I watched it, and I was like, I can kind of see it, I guess. But then he had the same makeup as Zombie Boy, and I thought that was really cool. So today I was referencing kind of both of them. It was a mix between Zombie Boy and I believe his name was Tate, I want to say, from American Horror Story, but those were the two references.
Jess Hop asks, is Tim's pencil case a crocodile?
It is. Here, let me. I saw it at Target, and it was literally under $1 on clearance, and see the teeth are white for the zipper, and the inside's red. I don't know. It was one of those things where I lose things very easily. I have a very bad short-term memory. So everything that I own is usually really brightly colored, like my phone. I actually have a case for my phone that's different than this, and it's just bright red so that I can see it, because I often misplace things. So my pencil case, I wanted to be an alligator, or anything that I could recognize easily. So when I'm looking for it, it kind of stands out. So yes, my pencil case is in fact an alligator.
The other guy asks, have you two heard or played Undertale? The skeleton totally reminded me of it.
No, I have not.
I watched maybe 10 minutes of, I think it was Two Best Friends or Game Grumps play Undertale. It looked interesting. It was kind of like an 8-bit adventure game.
I like 8-bit games.
I'll have to show it to you sometime. The game that I'm really interested at this time is Soma, though. It's the guys who did Amnesia: The Dark Descent. Very, very cool like environment and concept. The Says Fair asks, is it necessary to go to an animation college to learn 3D animation?
No, absolutely not. I think this is something that we echo throughout our streams, is when this question comes up, you don't need I don't want to say a proper education, but a formal education where you would get a degree at the end, and there's classrooms, and I do say that there are benefits to it. I think you can meet people, and there is networking opportunities that wouldn't be available as much online. And sometimes just being around other creative people sparks inspiration within yourself. And I think that healthy competition can be a really good thing to drive yourself forward to learn new things. But in terms of actually learning, you can learn anything you want online, especially in today's modern age. There's nothing that I feel you have to have schooling for in our medium, where you have to go to a schooling to get the proper education. Because even when I was in school, I felt like I had a very poor quality education in terms of what I was learning. But the people that I met and the networking that I made, and I actually got my job through my portfolio show, that's what made schooling worth it for me. But I can understand where there's nights where you're teaching yourself on YouTube videos or going to DeviantArt and following step-by-steps, and you're wondering why your teachers don't know the information that you're learning when it's literally out there in the open and free to learn. So anything that you want to learn, especially what you're asking for a 3D, was it animation or just for modeling?
3D animation.
Yeah, especially for animation. There are so many resources out there that you can find online. Even CG Cookie just released another 3D animation course. So, I mean, that's more if you're interested in Blender, but any software, I promise you, even YouTube, you'll find videos that will give you solid step-by-steps on how to go about your process. Now, mind you, there's a lot of bad ones too. It's not like every tutorial out there is amazing. So you kind of have to filter and search for the diamonds in the rough. But when you do, I mean, you really know, you'll know it right away, and you'll be able to apply that knowledge to your own work.
And you also have to be very disciplined.
Yes.
That's really, like, that's the key, I think, to doing online education, is not being like, well, I don't have to watch it today. It is convenient, but I mean, if you're not whacking at it every day, then you know, you're not going to really get anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
NJA Nugent asks, have you ever had multiple topics that you want to study more about at the same time, like character concept, character modeling, environment concept, and how do you organize your study schedule so that you don't get overwhelmed or confused?
I would say when I was still in school, I was very interested in learning everything. Like I wanted to be a sculptor, I wanted to be a 3D modeler, an animator. I wanted to make 8-bit games. I wanted to be a children's book illustrator. And I think as I grew up and I kind of matured, it filtered down to what I was truly passionate about. And I think that process of kind of self-discovery for what you're most interested in, then you can really focus and hone in. And that's when you start to see like a mastering of your craft. And I know me and Joe talk about, would you rather be a jack of all trades or a jack of all trades, a master of none? Or would you be a master of one, but literally you're only just a master of one? And that's kind of what you spend all your time in. So for me personally, I don't have too much other softwares or things that I would want to learn. I do want to test out and experiment with sculpting traditionally more, but I will say I think doing pencil sketches and digital art have been kind of my finding, I guess, my goal that I was looking for when I was in school. So now that I found it, I think I really just want to keep exploring this kind of stuff. Even with traditional, there's so much more I can explore with pencil stuff. Even recently, I bought the actual real drawing pencils. I say real very loosely, but with the 2B and the H pencils. And I'm going to start experimenting with laying some of those out on my pieces. Okay, so if you guys can see, I pretty much have the outline of the skull done. From here is when we can start doing the detailing. Maybe I'll zoom in a little further. Hopefully the camera doesn't blur too much. All right, so even if there's areas where I can see my skin is kind of rubbing against and smudging it, I just use my eraser and clean it up. Now this is important to note, since I know it's backwards on the screen, but my hand, since I draw this way, since I don't want my the other side of my knuckle rubbing and smudging the rest of the image, I'm going to draw left to right, because if I drew right to left, I would smear and start smudging all the work that I've done. So this is one of those technical things that you should be aware of when you're drawing and making sure that you're not ruining your piece. You know what? I think I'm going to switch down to my 0.3 pencil.
Benjamin Warren asks, do you guys find yourself on your sketchbook or your computer more? What do you prefer?
I think it changes almost every month for me. Right now, I would say definitely more traditional, but I would say last month I was very heavy into doing digital, and that's what I was doing on the weekends, and I was really pushing myself to kind of learn color further. So I think I would say it switches off. It just kind of depends on what mood I'm in or what piece I'm currently creating.
I was gonna say I'd usually do both, because I whenever I'm not around my computers, so say if we like I'll sit down and watch TV or something, I usually bring my sketchbook, and then before I go to bed I sketch. But if I'm not roaming around, then I'm usually on my computer sketching in Photoshop. Darth Revan asks, how do you prevent your kneaded eraser from getting hard?
To be honest, I've never actually had it get hard on me. I've never had it had rigor mortis. It hasn't died on me. But if it is harder, I just start stretching it out. This one, since it's relatively new, I don't want to be stretching it out too much because I like that it has this square shape. But like this one, I would actually say it becomes more loose the more I use it. And that can get actually a little frustrating, where sometimes you want it to be more rigid, but like the eraser is like bending whenever you touch the paper. So I've never actually had the problem of it hardening up. So I'm not sure on that one. Okay, so now as we get into the detailing areas, when I'm shading this out, I'm not just gonna be like doing really rough shading where I'm just blotching in areas of dark. I want to have it be more of a gradual transition, and I'm gonna be okay with letting some of the contrast just remain there for separation purposes. So like on this nostril piece, I'm gonna shade it heavily on the nostril that's closer to us, or I shouldn't say it's like a full nostril, but the in part of the skull, where I'm gonna let this outer outline, I don't know how well, I'm gonna let that be more seen, and then I'm gonna have this start the transition of shading here. I'll zoom back out. I know my camera has some.
I was gonna say, I think the quality of the stream is becoming a bit more pixelated.
Okay, yeah, I just gotta keep it in place then. So yeah, as I'm going around, I'm not trying to just create a heavy outline, but I'm looking at where I could add contrast that would kind of emphasize either the subject matter area or gives kind of more interest to a certain area. So like the inside of the skull, I know eventually this will probably be a bit darker, but there's no need to just make it one solid black spot. Like we can have fun with the little nuances on the inside of the skull and kind of play that up.
Can you guys in the stream tell me if the quality of the stream is good or not? On my end, it's a bit pixelated. Like it's still trying to buffer.
Really? On my end, it's like perfect.
It might just be my computer. Kathy Brown says, "Oh man, I am late." Anywho, question: how do you keep from being too heavy-handed in the sketching process? I start out okay, but by the end, I've made it so that I can't erase all of the lines.
Can't erase all of the lines. To be honest, I don't use my eraser all that much when I'm working. So I think with something like that, you might be rushing the darks too fast. So always lay in lighter and then build up your darkers gradual. And I find that that works best. Usually this is more of like a traditional painting technique, or even with like makeup study, as I've come to learn with Face Off and my roommate, is that you build from light to dark. And I kind of grew up in college thinking that you had to work dark to light. So it's kind of funny having the opposite transition be true in certain situations. And then for traditional, I definitely could see either working. But since we're starting on a white paper, it's one of those things where you are, no matter what, starting light to dark. It's kind of up to you on how dark you want to get. And just know that the harder you press down and the more darks you add, it will become harder to erase. So it's something to keep in mind as you're laying in darker values. Like even some of these outlines that I'm doing here, I know I'm like confident that I want those outlines to be there because they won't erase cleanly at this point. I've pressed down hard enough on those areas where I know if I erased it, it would still give this indentation of an outline. So I got to be very aware of where I'm pressing harder and where I can be pressing lighter.
Julia K asks, can you tell more about your rendering technique with pencil, and how far do you prefer to go with rendering to get realistic looking images?
Yeah, so when I'm doing my process, I generally like working with minimal shading and kind of letting the forms speak for themselves based on the minimal depth that I'm trying to give it. And it's something that I don't think like it came naturally, I want to say, where that's what I really enjoy doing is doing subtlety. So when I'm shading, I think that's why I work very slow and very meticulous, because I like exploring the idea of a few lines making a bigger impression than having it be like very bold and loose. Now, I do enjoy doing organics more, and I think that's because I can get away with having more artistic freedom with it. I think there's liberties that I can take, like even with how I render the skull, I can add in like little crevices or different breakage or even cracks if I wanted to, because it lends itself to this kind of a subject matter. But if I was doing like hard surface, I don't enjoy it as much because it's very linear, it's very inorganic, and I think that's why I don't do it as much. So when I'm doing my rendering style for this, I look at the different shapes that I'm creating, and I try to direct the eye the best I can with the pieces that I'm doing. Let me see if I can find an example. So, this is on my desk. So even with this one, with all the tentacles that we have going on here, you can see how they're not fully rendered out, and there's even some like in the background that are left more with like a negative space. But I'm trying to direct the eye in different directions, and to do that, it definitely relies on a lot of contrast and where I'm shading heavily versus more light. And I think that's what I like doing most when doing my traditional is, and actually we have a skull on this one too. So I like drawing skulls. If you can't tell, horns and feathers are anything organic. I think I find myself more attracted to drawing. So when it comes to rendering it, I think that's why I enjoy that, because then I can add in cracks or breaks or have little imperfections that actually lend itself to being more beautiful as an end result. Okay, so now this is an area I will talk about. Every now and then I'll be like ridiculously meticulous and try to shade out this entire like back of the skull with just a 0.2. That's really inefficient, and I try to teach to be as efficient as possible. So I need to, practice what I preach. So in this area, I'm going to use a thicker lead so I can get in the shadow faster, because if I was only using a 0.2, it would take much, much longer. It would be more precise, and there'd probably be a cleaner rendering to it. But for time and, not spending an hour just rendering a back of a skull, I do want to push it along further with a larger lead. And you can see how I'm gradually building up these values. I'm not pushing down too hard because, like I said, I like to build them up. So I'll do like one layer, I'll kind of eye it out and be like, this area could be a bit darker, and then I'll lightly lay on a darker value. And that's something that I really enjoy about doing traditional stuff, is I can be a bit slower, but I can be slow with purpose, and I can really analyze everything that I'm working on at the speed that I want to work at. Where I feel like digital, sometimes I'm so pressured to work fast that I don't think I like my results as much as I do with traditional, because I feel like I have full control and precision with traditional. But I do think, and I'll let you guys know how it goes whenever I get around to getting my Cintiq, how that transition is, and if I can carry over the same way I do my rendering traditionally into my digital.
Jess Hop asks, how do critique streams work? Like, how would I submit my drawing for you guys to critique?
So typically we announce it. We've only done it once before, but I think the standard of how we're going to do it is we're going to announce it a week before the stream will happen, and then we'll put up a thread on the community.cgcookie.com, and you can submit yours there, and then we will decide on, I think last time we did 9 pieces that we will critique live on the stream, and that's typically how it happens. So I don't think there's too much to it besides finding out when the stream will actually be, uploading your image on the correct thread, and you also have to put a description of what you want to be, not only to be critiqued, but what you feel you're lacking or what the piece itself is lacking, so that we have some insider information. Since we don't know you personally, we can try to get a better idea and sense of the kind of artist you are and what you're trying to achieve.
Jake Scott asks, did y'all do marketing for today's stream?
I did. It's right here. Oh, you mean like, did we market it online? Yes. We market on our DeviantArt. The only one that we don't do anymore is our Facebook, but our DeviantArt, Twitter, Tumblr, and the community, we always market that we're doing these live streams.
Yeah, now we do intercom messages too as well. So like
And
when you guys go onto the website, it should pop up saying, "Hey, we have a live stream." If you're on the 2D flow.
So every now and then I like to do this cross hatching technique. If there's areas where I want the actual method to be seen on how I'm shading it, I'll let just simple strokes be seen. And having that almost adds a touch of texture as well. It's just a breakup in space where if everything's very smooth and fluid, I think it can lend itself to being more boring. So I try to at least add some areas where it breaks up the negative space and adds some more interest for the eye to look at.
Okay. Oops, sorry.
Sorry, you go.
Alice Fair asks, please suggest cool anime series I could watch. I really like action anime and crazy psychological mind effing stories and plot twists like Death Note and One Out. And what's your top 3 animes?
To be honest, I haven't seen all that many. The ones that I have seen, I do like. My all-time favorite is Kino's Journey. And then, man, there's so many crazy ones that I've liked. Like, I feel like Fooly Cooly is a standard good one. Cowboy Bebop. Recently, I really like Kill la Kill. I wanted not to like it, but I find myself more drawn to it. It's like when you watch someone that knows what they're doing and they're really good at it, and they just have like absolute fun without slipping the quality. So I really like Kill la Kill. Man, what's the... I guess, yeah, those are the ones I can think off the top of my head.
I'm trying to think of... I mean, I watched... what was I recently watching? I recently was watching Denmachi. That one was pretty good. Maxim Parasite, I really enjoyed. That one's a bit gory, but it's very cool. I'm trying to think of like, yeah, and I'd say like Fooly Cooly is, if you watch anime, you know what that is. You know, like you just know because it's good. I think that they were saying that they were going to try to remake it or something like that.
Gosh, I hope not.
I know, right? Lifetime Gamer says Tokyo Ghoul. I really like that one for the crazy.
Oh, I actually just watched the trailer for that. I was like trying to find anime I could watch during Halloween month because I only like to watch horror or Halloween themed movies or I guess TV shows. And that one kind of caught my interest.
I know a lot of people talk about Tokyo Ghoul quite a bit. I haven't seen anything on it though.
All right, really quick. I'm going to really zoom in on these teeth. And I think this is a trial of patience. And I think this is something that if I can teach you guys anything, is that patience pays off. So with these teeth, rather than doing like a quick render job on them, I'm going to actually zoom in. I'm glad you guys can't see me. I'm pressing my face pretty close to the paper so I can see the detail that I'm adding. And I'm going to try to create almost a little gum rim under each of these teeth and really try to render these out to the best of my ability. So like areas like here, I don't know how well you can see on the stream, but I'm gonna erase it because it became too cluttered. It was a bit messy. So I'm gonna relay it down here. And if you're curious where you can get these type of pencils, we'll put a link in the description after. These pencils are wonderful for these very, very small detail areas.
Where'd that go? That was a good question. Oh, Jess Hop asks, a long time ago I asked what your favorite character design was from any game, movie, TV show and Tim answered Cloud of Final Fantasy. But I was wondering if Joe had a favorite character design.
Whoa. No.
I was like, wait, that's your favorite?
It was not Cloud from Final Fantasy. It was close. I liked it because of how ridiculous it was, but it was Cloud from Kingdom Hearts. And if you guys ever see that concept, it is wildly like nonsensical, but I really, really enjoy the color, the silhouette, like everything about it. It just kind of tickles me in a way. And I wouldn't say that that's normally what I'm attracted to, but for some reason that concept design really struck me.
I wouldn't say I have a character design like my favorite character design ever. I definitely have gone through phases, and there are ones that I've looked at that I appreciate so much for their aesthetic design. I mean, you're talking even Master Chief's design is really good, especially when Halo 2 came out. What else? Ruby characters are always really cool. Of course, Final Fantasy designs are always really good. I love the 14 designs. Yoshida's always awesome. And then, I mean, the Bloodborne, the way that Bloodborne just looks. I love the highwayman coat with like the high collar, and they got the little hats, the colonial hats, and just trench coaty looking things. Very, very cool. So yeah. Lenny asks, where have you learned and improved the most? Example, university of like a university course or online?
Neither, to be honest. I think, and I'm not saying that this is a blanket statement as like a truth for every artist, but I think through your own process, you learn the most. Through experimenting, you learn the most. And sometimes that doesn't lend itself to like a specific course or education. It's just something where while you're drawing, you try something new and it works very, very well. And you're able to take that knowledge and then apply it to the rest of your pieces.
I wonder if I don't know why this popped in my head, but it was the idea of next week, because Halloween's over next week, and if you live in the States, you have the possibility of going around and searching for stuff that's on sale for Halloween. Go try to find skulls. I know they're probably not the most accurate, like they're not one for one, but they are pretty good reference just to have around, just a skull.
They're typically pretty cheap. The one that I have on my desk was $4. Okay, really quick, in areas that seem to be too dark, like the top of this gum here or even some of the area in here, I do a dabbing technique. So I'll roll it up to create this kind of a shape, and then I'll dab the paper. I'm not trying to completely remove it. I'm just trying to lighten it. You can see how that effect then takes. And if I erase too much, then I can go back in with my pencil and darken up a little area where it might have read too dark.
NJ Nugent says, are you the sole writer of your comic? When you write the plot, or do you ever wonder if your plot is believable, realistic, etc., overall good enough? I do this and I get discouraged from showing my story to others and move forward with the story.
I'm right there with you. I do have someone that I've kind of grew up with, and the idea of the book that I'm writing stemmed when I was in like 4th or 5th grade. And since then, me and him have always kind of been in touch and talked about it. But when it comes to writing it, I think only recently have I started sharing it with other people. And it's good. Getting that feedback is very necessary to make sure that you aren't just like tunnel visioned on the concept or the story. Because even though you may believe you have like a really good story on your hands, a lot of the things like what you're talking about does it make sense? Could that even happen? Or are you asking the right questions? I think having outside sources that are maybe less filtered and have more of an open opinion on it can give you more honest feedback, and that'll really help your story. So being open with your story doesn't hurt. And I think you're only hurting yourself if you only allow yourself to see and read it. Oh, you guys can't see what I'm drawing. Oops. There we go.
And asks, have you guys played BioShock Infinite? If yes, what was your favorite thing about the game?
I played the first 2 all the way through. The third one, Infinite, I got about halfway through. I actually didn't fall in love with the game mechanics as much as the first two, so I stopped playing. But I will say that opening sequence when you first lifted up into the sky and it's playing this wonderful music, and I'm trying to think, was that before? Because you get baptized in this church with like a lot of floating candles. Visually, it's very impressive. And then I remember the first time walking around Infinite, and you're just kind of like admiring the scenery that they created in this world building that you started to believe. And I think that's why when it got more crazy and there were people dying everywhere, it took me out of that. But like the initial, I want to say it was like 15 minutes to a half hour before you throw the ball, that really struck a chord with me.
I was gonna say the world building in all the BioShock games is really solid. I didn't like Infinite as much as the first one. The first one kind of, I don't know. I guess it was because it was like brand new and fresh, and no one had really done something like that before, at least to my knowledge. And it was like I was going in expecting it to be just a shooter game with superpowers, but then it was like also kind of scary, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's the one thing I kind of didn't like about Infinite was that Infinite really didn't hold. I feel like it was the grand. It was more on like a grand scale, whereas the rail system wasn't as cool as when they first introduced it, and a lot of stuff had changed in production over the time. That was like and Elizabeth's AI wasn't that great from the concept that they were working with.
Shoot, there is a. I remember when BioShock came out, and I want to say it was like System Shock. There's another game that it stole a lot of its thematic elements from. I'm gonna have to look that up after. But I remember being really disappointed that that wasn't like an original type of an idea. But I loved everything about the aesthetic. I kind of fell in love with. If you can't tell by what I'm drawing, and I love organics, the idea of like this underwater city slowly decaying and the people in it decaying, if not faster, but they're almost more crazy and wild. I love that. And even the colors. I remember it was like last week I was on a thread where someone just took screenshots of the main areas in BioShock, and each area was like very distinct from one another. Maybe that was another thing I really enjoyed, is that they took the time to make each area feel different from the last.
Yeah. That was the one thing that I didn't like about Infinite. I felt like Infinite was very gold and orange and red, and then the end of the game was kind of like purple-ish. I kind of want to show you the Soma trailer because the world is similar to that. I think it's a bit too sci-fi though for you, you know.
Yeah, sometimes I lose interest if it's too sci-fi.
Yeah. Where did that go? Oh, Just Hop asks, on the topic of video game worlds, have either of you seen Witcher 3's environments? It's prettier than real life, I swear.
I watched the trailer. The trailer was really well rendered. To be honest, I don't play games anymore. And it's not because I don't like games. I don't allow myself the time to do it. I'd much rather draw a new concept, or I would say movies have become like my go-to for outside entertainment because they're done in an hour and a half and I can draw during them. Where games, I just don't have the time. I still love them, and I'm not one of those people that can watch another person play it. I really have to feel like I'm engaged in playing it myself, so I don't play games too often anymore.
I was gonna say I played 2 a little bit, and I couldn't get into it for some reason. I just couldn't get into The Witcher, but I know a lot of people that were really into Witcher 3 when it launched, and apparently it's a really, really good game. I don't know, just something about it. I don't know if it's like I don't like the main character. I'm not a big fan of like white-haired main characters with like long hair, like long ponytails. I just don't. But I think the environment is like super cool. You know, like the setting, like fantasy, like witch hunting and stuff. The other thing is it's kind of like Dragon Age, the last one that came out, where it's just sometimes there's just too much to a game. Like I don't have the time to go and craft and try to find, you know, this animal at this time to craft this weapon type thing.
Some people love that though.
I know a lot of people get like super deep into it. I was trying to think of like video games that I was like, oh, I kind of want to play that, and it was like Overwatch. I guess the beta just came out for that, and I really like the character designs, but the gameplay I was watching was just kind of basic. It was like TF2 plus League of Legends.
What else do you need?
Right.
Some like 2 amazing gameplays right there. All right, I think I'm at the point where if I keep going, I might start over-rendering it. So I guess I'll do one more pass on it, maybe clean up some areas. But for the most part, this is as far as I would take it. And I'm not sure, like maybe I could add a few little details. But for the most part, once you're able to draw the skull and you kind of have a general idea of like how the different areas work, like how does this mouthpiece kind of work and attach to the skull, then you can have more funds and take more liberties. Like if I look at the pirate one out the corner of my eye, there's definitely some anatomical problems with it, but since it lends itself to being more abstract, I can be more illustrative with the forms, and I have the knowledge where it's based in a realism, but then I can use it to more of a style. So doing studies like this are really great because then you can take the information you learn from doing this kind of a study and then apply it to your own work. All right, so if there's like another question or two, and then we will get into announcing the contest winner.
Hans Krill says, great. Why do countries vary the dates of daylight savings times? How long have you guys been going already? We actually haven't yet. We don't do daylight savings until November 1st.
Mm-hmm.
On Sunday.
Which, if you guys don't know, November 1st is kind of like how Inktober is for October. November 1st is every artist is, I forget what the actual name is, but it's like self-portrait day or something where you're challenged to do a portrait of yourself. And the idea is that every November 1st, you draw a portrait of yourself, and over time you can see the change and hopefully the growth and how much you've learned and it's applied into your study. So this Sunday, I will be doing a profile sketch. And I think that this has been going on for 7 years. I think 2 years ago was the first time I participated. And then last year I missed. So I'm going to get back on the track and start doing it again.
I didn't even know it was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now I know.
And now all you know.
And knowing is half the battle. G.I. This is a good question from Fabian Dorenbos. Says, if I create a drawing, especially a digital one, I always know something looks off, but I can't find what that thing is. Any advice on finding the mistakes in your drawing?
Yeah, this comes down to a lot of really analyzing your pieces. And if you can see that something's wrong, but you can't tell what, that's good. That means that you're able to recognize, you have a visual eye that's able to recognize that something doesn't look quite right. You just don't have the knowledge on how to bridge that gap yet. So then your job is to figure out how to do that. So for example, if it was like drawing hair, if when you draw hair, you can tell something doesn't look right, or it looks more sloppy or blurry, or something about it doesn't feel rendered, well, really take a look at it. Take a look at an example that you do enjoy from an artist or even from real life. I would actually recommend looking at an artist study and seeing how they do it, and just try to bridge that gap. Try to recreate exactly what they did. And through that process, typically what happens is you'll pick something up that you weren't doing before, and you'll be able to apply that then from that point further. So it's usually a lot of experimenting and discovery, but don't think that that's a bad thing. That's actually a good thing that you're able to recognize it.
A couple people just popped in and were like, why is the stream so, like, did the stream start early this week? I guess they all have daylight saving times happen already.
Oh, you know what? We ran into this issue last year. Oh, I'm so sorry, everyone. Especially since I know we have more of a worldwide audience than just the States. Well, next week we'll make sure we do the research on getting the right time out and letting you guys know when we're going to do it.
Kathy Brown asks, how does knowing the anatomy of the skull help with drawing faces?
So I guess really quick, since we draw this skull, let me go on the side here and grab the other pencil. All right, so whenever I do faces in profile, which is a lot, if you haven't seen any of my traditional art, I think I kind of put myself in that niche. Well, anyways, when I'm doing the side profile, I always draw this eye socket first. I think that's something that is maybe something that's more that I personally do. I don't know if this is the right way to do it, but I usually always draw the eye socket and then I place the eyeball inside of it. But the eye socket placement is because I know what that would look like on the skull and where that would be. And then even with the jaw, I always think of this line right here and where to place that on here. And how this circle, it doesn't connect to this jawline. It actually pushes back further, and this connects into the neck. So it's like things that you'll notice when you do the skull, and you're like, well, okay, now how do I apply skin to this? And the more that you do it, you're like, oh, this is actually further away than I thought. The craziest thing is when you realize how far away, in profile at least, the eye is from the other side of the head. A lot of the times we make the heads too small, but really if you look at a realistic representation, the eye is actually like, I want to say it's obviously in the first half, but then I think it's literally in the middle half if you split that section in half as well. It's very, very far forward. And then the other half is just a lot of empty space. And that's why it's usually filled with hair. And then you can start to kind of have fun with laying in your hair. But you'll always notice when it looks not far back enough. Like if I left the head like this, you can tell something looks wrong. I don't know. Let me put it there. But if we pushed it back because we're keeping the skull in mind, then it seems to make a bit more sense proportionally with how we're laying it out. So understanding the skull usually lends itself to having better proportions when you're doing your own characters or your own work. All right, so I think I'm done with the skull here. Should we get into announcing the winners? Or is there any more questions on skulls?
I don't think there are many on skulls. There's just kind of random questions.
All right, let's take one more random question. I'll detail this bottom out.
Jake Scott asks, Tim and Joe, have y'all experienced problems scheduling time to draw due to a change in a living situation?
Kind of. I guess every time I do move, I have to adjust a little bit depending on like where I'm comfortable drawing, because typically I like drawing really, really late, like 1 a.m. And if I'm in a situation where I have to share a room, like when I was in college and I had a roommate, I obviously could not draw during that time period, unless if I wanted like a little light under a lamp type deal, but I wasn't willing to. So I think every time I move, I try to find where I'm most comfortable drawing in the house or in the apartment. And then I would kind of isolate myself to that corner or wherever it would be and draw.
Usually when there's stuff like if it's a big life-changing event thing, I usually take those days off from drawing, and I use those as kind of like a reset button, which is rather nice. And I'll maybe take a day or two off, and then it'll be easy for me to then recollect myself and sit down and be okay, just get back into it. Then I usually end up drawing at a desk or in a bed is majority of the time where I draw.
Okay, I think I'm done with the skull. All right, so there we have it. If I zoom out a little bit more, you can see, see how big it actually is. There's my hand. And I would say over time, you kind of find out that you draw heads kind of the same size every time. And unless if you're like consciously aware of making it different sizes or trying to like draw the whole body, if you're only doing a profile or like a bust of a character, I find myself doing an initial circle, and that circle tends to be the exact same on almost every profile I do. So even looking at like this other skull I did, they're almost the same size. Actually, if I put them side to side, like look how similar those look. And typically that's not a bad thing because then you can adjust, but usually it's a muscle memory thing where when you're going, sometimes you don't even recognize it, but it's good to recognize when you are doing the same size. Oh, now the sun comes out. Are you seeing that?
Right.
This morning I was like trying to figure out how to make this area lighter because the first stream in like 8 weeks that it hasn't been light outside. So now I get the light that I wanted. Well, I'm gonna keep it in the shadow just because I'm bitter. All right. Let me switch over the cameras here. Ooh. Oh, now it's super bright. All right. So for a lot of you that came to the stream wondering whether or not you won the contest, let me see really quick. Oops. There we go. Okay, so now is the time when we can announce who won this year's Halloween contest.
Is there any way to pull the mic closer to you?
Oh, yes. Hello?
There you go.
All right, let me get this camera off of here. All right. Ooh, it's going to be awkward, like, put it there. Nope. Whoa. I don't know you that well, microphone. Stop dancing toward me. I'm like hoping. It's moving at such a slow rate, I bet you can't even see it. I think it stopped. Okay. Sorry. Anyways. Okay. Let me pull up the winner on the other screen here as we get started. So first things first, thank you guys so much for those of you that entered. There were a lot of entries, and if you weren't here early in the stream, because I know we have the daylight savings thing that we forgot to take into account, but me and Joe had a lot of discussion on which one should win, and this was not easy. This is, I think, the hardest contest we had to judge, and I think, once again, there wasn't like a standout winner to me, and the one that we chose based on the quality and the overall look of the piece. So let me pull that up on the other screen here. And for those of you who don't know and have no idea what I'm talking about, we did a werewolf contest, and we put up a bunch of rules and guidelines at the beginning of this month, and they had all of October to enter. And we do these seasonally. So the next one will be in the winter. And we do these as a way to not only challenge you guys, but also to win some stuff. And you guys can see what the rest of the community is doing as well. I think it's really cool where you can start to see people that post in the sketchbooks and then they carry it over into doing the contest, and you can see how they've grown, and hopefully from one contest to the next you can see the growth in the artist, and it's really cool to see that. So look forward to the next one. If you weren't able to enter this one, just know that there's another one coming in, I want to say 2 months, but this one might actually be in January. It kind of depends on the time schedules here at CG Cookie. So something just to keep in mind. Okay, I have it ready to go. Joe, you got your drum roll?
Let me throw up the sound effects.
Yes.
Is it Google Effects?
Mm-hmm.
Not that where. All right.
Okay. So out of all the out of the entries,
Are you gonna show your screen?
there we go.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Let me get the rulers out of there. Drum roll, please. And here we are. This is from, let me check the, Jesse Kaisala, I want to say. Username, Jesse K92. There were a lot of things that works very, very well with this piece. I think this one was one of the few that actually looked like a concept art piece that would be in the industry today. And that I really appreciated. I like that the werewolf has the golden eye on the wolf. The one thing that really, I think, almost prevented me from fully like wanting this to win was the human character itself didn't have the golden eye. And I think maybe the transition is to when he becomes a wolf, the gold eye becomes more apparent, and maybe the shadow just doesn't lend itself to catching the golden glimmer in the iris, but that's something I would have liked to see. But everything else, it felt like a concept art piece. It felt very finished and final. I could see a slight personality behind the character just in this simple profile view, and I really appreciate the way that they kept it more neutral with their colors, yet it still speaks very strongly. So this is the winner of this year's Halloween contest for cgcookie.com, and I can't wait to start the next one. All right, is there any other comments that we want to say before we leave?
I was going to say the resulting silver, bronze, and community award will be posted on the post. So if you guys are interested in seeing who won those, go check out the post. And
yes. And the only reason we're not going to announce the other ones is because literally the final results were tallied up like 10 minutes before the stream started. So we wanted to at least share the winner as we promised on the live stream. But if you are curious who won second, third, or the community, you can check it out on the post that's coming out very shortly. All right. That's all I got to say, Joe.
Yep.
Oh, wait. And then lastly, tomorrow, the concept or the color course comes out. And this is something that we've been working very hard on. So if this is something that intrigues you or you want to improve your own color knowledge, check that out sometime tomorrow. I'm going to finish the final recordings tonight. So I got to go to Subway and I got to eat so that I can finish recording these. Okay. Bye, everyone. See you next week.
Bye.